which means they weren't paying attention. $80,000 study why the same teams dominate March Madness. Well, the same teams don't dominate it, so the premise under the study in the first place, and I'm not sure that what that lends to us as a country in terms of creating leading science technology. So the point is I think if we have great oversight, and I think that's, I'm on the oversight committee on the other side of the hill, the purpose ought to be is to call attention to where we're missing the mark in terms of what our goals are. So other things, $1 million for an analysis of how quickly parents respond to trendy baby names. Now, you know, as a scientist, I have trouble finding out how that as a country, especially in a constricted budget environment, is going to help us. You know, what's the positive thing that's going to come out of that research? Maybe there is something, but is it a priority? And does a cost-benefit analysis say for what we're going to get, could we have spent the money somewhere else to get much better leading-edge technologies? $315,000 study Farmville, whether Farmville on Facebook helps adults' relationships. $581,000 to study whether online dating users are racist in their dating habits. Maybe there's value in that, but the point is it's all about priorities. And the reason in a lot of grants that you're not seeing priorities is because we're not looking at it. We're not holding the agencies accountable. Here's a mission statement, here's what we're supposed to be doing, and then they kind of get off track. And the reason they can get off track is because they're not before the Congress every year, somebody going over their grants with them. So aggressive oversight is one of the most important things we can do. It doesn't mean we're right about our assessment of what they're doing, but knowing that they have to come before and explain their grants will limit a lot of questionable grants that go out there for things that don't have great cost-benefit analysis to us. We also found significant fraud and inappropriate expenditures at the National Science Foundation. We also found significantly poor contracting practices. And let me comment on something the other panel said. There shouldn't be, other than in rare instances, any grant that isn't competitive. There should not be any contract that isn't competitive. And where we know we have problems in our government, for example, we have $64 billion a year in IT, $32 billion of that is at risk. In other words, it's never going to get accomplished. We will have blown 50% of our IT budget, and we do it every year. We blow it and because of the way we contract and the way we oversight it. So there's a lot of money that we can spend more wisely and also get greater value for the American public if we make sure, one, that we competitively bid all these things, and number two is we know what we want before we contract. And that's a big problem in the Defense Department. It's a big problem in the large agencies. They don't know what they want, and they write a contract anyway. And what they should be doing is waiting until they figure out or create only a research contract to say what is it that we want. It is a giant problem that has $100 billion worth of waste a year in the Federal Government. And let me just talk for a second about the poor contracting practices, and then I'll stop. We found that NSF in 2010 spent $422 million for contracts, $283 million of which were not competitively bid. They were cost plus. And they were paid regardless of whether the work was completed or not. 70% of the $204 million went to contracts permitting advance payments to just 3 groups. And none of these contractors had an approved disclosure statement, so what happened, the agency couldn't identify or document the actual costs, which is a problem with the contract at the beginning. In other words, they didn't do it right at the beginning, and when they found that they couldn't get what they wanted, they didn't have the tools to find out whether or not they got good value because they couldn't get the information. And then final thing, that one of the things we have to do as a Congress is, with all the grant, is the tremendous amount of duplication. And I'll give you an example in NSF. NSF